You take the thing apart. What did you think you were going to find? Because I think we talked about maybe it spun a bearing. But what did?
Well, I mean, I expected. I mean, I what do you expect, right? I expected shrapnel of some sort. I've never seen a rod cap that bad before. That was, I mean, you hammered that sucker flat. That was pretty good.
Yeah. I did a good job.
Look,
I did a great job.
In the end, you benefited from a couple. So, look, we figured out what happened. And not long after that, I took my own motor apart, and you were the beneficiary of that.
Hey guys, welcome to Overcrest. I'm Kris.
And I'm Jake.
And I was thinking to myself, should we get rid of the intro music and just do it?
No.
No, you like the intro music?
Yeah.
It feels good?
Yeah, I thought you meant like the introductions. We probably don't need that anymore.
Well, there's lots of people that are listening for the first time.
Okay.
And if that's you,
hi,
thanks.
Welcome.
Hello, welcome. You're
You're 400 episodes late.
400 more episodes of absolute bullshit for you to listen to, for you to get caught up. All right, so this episode has been a long time coming.
It has.
So we're having Marco Gracci from TLG Auto, who worked on my car on the podcast in a little bit, to talk about everything that happened and maybe a little bit of history about the shop and stuff like that. But I have not really
explained the full.
I have not gone through the whole story arc.
Yes.
Of everything that happened, because the story arc was not closed. And it's pretty well closed at this point. It's I've been out there, I've driven the car.
Yeah.
All this stuff.
You have closure.
I didn't know what was going to happen. Things kept getting worse, so I didn't know if they were going to continue to get worse. I didn't know what was going on with the shop, like all these different things.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And there's a point where I was trying to figure out like having insurance maybe pay for something, so I didn't want to say something and have them deny the claim.
Yeah,
like all these different things that were like spinning around, swirling around. And I wanted to just be able to tell the story once, and then I want to be able to rip the chapters out of the book
and burn them
and move on.
Okay, so what happened to your car, Kris?
Okay,
and when did this whole thing start?
God, it's
2021.
The last time I had driven the car was...
So 2021, the rally. Let's just start there. Okay.
Yep, Utah.
We had the rally in Utah.
Utah rally, you guys.
And then you drove it to California.
I drove it to California because I wanted to be able to have my wife come out and do a drive with me. We were going to drive. We were going to drive up to...
You were going to go up
Here's what was going to happen. I was going to drive up to the Portland... Northern California area.
Okay.
Or actually, you know what I did?
Portland
I had someone
not in California for us geography
Portland
folks.
or Northern California. I lied. What I was gonna do, I'm reaching deep here in the memory banks.
Yeah. Well, it's been.
I was gonna leave it in Boise because I was gonna use it to scout the rally.
Oh.
So I was gonna store it till spring.
Last year's Idaho rally.
And I was gonna scout the rally with it. You guys know that I did it in that wagon instead.
Right. Yeah.
So I get in the car. It's great. It's fucking awesome.
California. So you parked it out there.
I parked it out there. And I left it with Marco. I said, hey, Marco.
With Jess.
I left it out there. I said, hey, Marco, check the thing over. I'm going to be coming out with my wife.
Yes.
This is, I want it to be nice. So just ready to go. Change the oil.
Yep.
Check the brakes. These different things. And just because it's really hard to do all that shit when you're not at home. Plus, you can store the car, whatever.
Yep. So he gave it a little once over.
Gave it a once over and ended up staying with a friend, a listener out there. His name's Sebastian. Many thanks to him for he's a great dude. He has a car that's actually being worked on at TLG as well. So it wasn't too far from the shop. So I left it there. Never leaked a drop of oil.
Interesting.
It was that motor never leaked.
Yeah.
It never leaked. I built that motor. My buddy Aaron at Flat Six helped me some.
Right.
But I'm still fucking proud.
Yeah,
that I built that engine myself.
Drop.
Never leaked oil.
Never skipped a beat up until this point.
Nothing. Always just took it.
Right.
Like if this was a marital relationship, I would be in prison a long time ago for how I treat that car.
You are not easy on that motor.
Not easy on anything, because it's just I'm just gonna, and that we'll talk about whether that's still possible anymore as we go on here.
Okay, so you and your wife fly
out for my birthday. Okay, my birthday's January 3rd. Yep. We fly out on the 1st.
2022.
Maybe it's the 1st or 2nd. 2021. I don't even know what day it was. get out there, go to Sebastian's house. I remember just like he had an orange tree there, and I remember picking up an orange, or maybe it was a lemon. I don't know, some fruit. And it got in the car, and I remember just driving it, and it was great.
Yeah.
I was so excited to be back in the car again.
It was great.
It was great, and Jesse was happy. I was happy. And Marco had actually found out an issue with the carbs.
That's right.
It had not been running well.
Yeah.
And the reason that it would never idle, there's other reasons now that we've discovered, is that there was a burr on the actual throttle of the carburetor. So when the butterfly would close, it would hit that burr and never close completely.
So you're getting all this waste air going through.
Waste air going through. You can't tune for it. And it would always be fine if I would like jam the throttle close, like hold it down.
Oh, sure, because you're getting past the burr.
Yeah, but it still has weird idle troubles, and I think that's because the springs in the distributor are not strong enough.
Sure.
Which is, shout out to the guy that built it, and I wasted my $900 on doing that. So shout out to that guy. I don't think he builds stuff anymore. I think very tempted to say who it is, but
facetious there.
Yeah, he doesn't.
So you had your distributor recurve to that.
Yes, it is. So if this guy still was working on cars, I would call him out.
Yeah,
because I'm salty about it. Anyway, so I pick up the car and we park it at a place called the Tangerine.
It was a hotel,
It was a hotel. It was maybe
old motel, vintage,
2 or 3 miles from where I picked the car up. So
Sure.
I drove it 2 or 3 miles.
Yep.
Parked it,
Yep.
and then Jesse and I went walking around.
Okay.
So we just wandered around, went to dinner, did all this stuff, and I remember I went to sleep that night, and I didn't feel very good.
That's right.
I didn't feel very good, and I thought maybe it was just because I had eaten a bunch of weed gummies, which I had never done before.
Oh, you did?
I was high as fuck, man.
I did not know this.
I was in the clouds. I remember sitting at this restaurant, and I could not stop laughing. It was ridiculous. And then I went back, and I'm like, oh, I don't feel very good, and I went to sleep. Wake up in the morning, I feel okay, and there's a Cars and Coffee somewhere. I don't remember where it is anymore, that I was going to go to. This is probably, I don't know, Saturday or Sunday morning, whatever it was.
Yep. So you get up.
I get up.
Leave Jess at the hotel.
Yep. She's going to sleep because it's like 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
Super
going
early. Just traffic.
Yep.
I get in the car. I start it up. I start backing it out. And I remember looking up, and I see a guy. He's giving me a thumbs up. And I remember like, yeah, great.
Thanks,
thumbs up.
dude.
This is awesome. And I back out, and I drive away.
Yep.
And I hop on the freeway.
Yep.
And I do an Instagram video of how happy I am.
Okay.
On my way to this Cars and Coffee. And in hindsight, I can hear it in my head. I could hear, it's kind of like a whirring, like if you had a spinning top. And the sound that a spinning top makes on a hard surface.
Yes.
But with like almost like a little bit of a whine.
Sure.
And I remember that it felt a little weird off throttle. Like it was kind of grabby. Which it was, because there's no fucking oil in the engine. And then this Instagram video, I pan across the windshield, and you can look down and you can see my oil pressure gauge. It says 0. Zero
so
oil
you went
pressure.
Back and watched this video.
I went back and watched that video, and it said 0 oil pressure. And I don't remember like the context of how long, but it was around 7 or 8 miles. Which would have been total since I picked the car up, but probably around 5 to 6 miles on the freeway at 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Flat out.
Yep.
You know, it's 3,600 RPMs.
Yep.
Just with no oil. No oil at all.
Because when you started the car up in the morning, it probably had pressure because it still had oil.
Yep.
And then somewhere from there to the freeway.
I know exactly what happened.
Okay.
At least I surmise exactly what happened. Now, do you want me to tell you, or do you want Marco to tell you?
Okay.
We'll do it twice. I'll tell you, and then we'll have Marco say the same thing anyway. So there is what happened was the oil return tube fell off of the car.
Okay. So this is from the dry sump oil reservoir
return to the tank. I believe it is the return to the tank.
Okay.
And it is,
which makes sense because then you have to use all of the tank's oil until it goes empty.
Yeah.
Right?
And
that's why you didn't
and
notice
it's under
it right
pressure
away.
because it's pressurizing it back into the tank. I think it is the oil return tube. Marco might say I'm wrong. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
I remember it sounding okay. And then in an instant, it sounded real bad. Really, really bad.
Can you describe the sound? Not imitate, describe.
I was trying to think. Yeah, it was like a thunking. Like it just. But I mean, I was so fast with that key. I cannot even impress upon you how fast.
Clutch and turn off.
It was boom. I was like, oh, I mean, it was
you heard it
within a second.
When you heard it.
Yeah, when I heard it, it was within a second. I turned the key off.
But as we know now, the damage was done.
It was by far the damage. We'll talk about. I'll let Marco talk about the damage and stuff like that. So, I coast off and I coast for as far as I can off the on ramp. I was lucky.
So luckily you were right by an exit.
Right by an on ramp. Coasted off, went around this corner and parked the car. And then there's the video that you see of me pushing the car up the street, crying. I was crying when I was pushing the car up the street
because you knew what this meant.
I pulled over, and I'm like, okay. I tried to start it, and it started and sounded the same. So it was like, and then I turned it off again right away. Like, okay, shit's fucked. It is. So then I get out of the car, and I go and I look underneath the car. No, nothing. No oil. No holes in the case. I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah.
What could that be? It's like I have no idea. What could it be? It's
because you didn't see actively dripping oil.
Because there wasn't any, dude. There's no oil.
It was all gone.
No, but I did kind of poke around, and I saw that oil line was not attached anymore.
Okay, you saw it.
And I go, holy shit. This is all a little muddy. I don't really
it's been a
remember.
Long time,
like,
but yes.
I don't remember if I put the oil line back on. I don't recall. I don't even remember what it was when.
So that was the catastrophe.
That was the catastrophe.
That's what happened.
That is what happened. Now, what I think the reason for this is.
Yeah.
Okay, so normally this line is a crimped line from the factory.
So it is a rubber hose that goes into a crimped.
It's a high pressure hose. So if you ever look at like an air conditioning system, if you don't know oil cooled cars, anything like that, all you have to do is look at an air conditioning system and you can see these types of lines.
Yep.
There's a hard line that goes into a soft line.
Right.
And on that is a big metal crimp.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a barb metal fitting.
Yep.
They slide the hose over it and then they crush it down on there.
Yep.
It's not a hose clamp because why? Because it's too critical. It's too critical for a hose clamp, so they crimp it because hose clamps can come loose and they can fall off. Okay. So, but the problem is over time,
you don't know that this is loosening.
No, over time, these crimped connections, they start to leak. And there's no way to stop them from leaking. So what you do, especially if you have a 72 911 where the oil lines are NLA or you can't find them, especially if you live in like the Midwest, or this was already done before I got the car. Okay. Is you take a cutting wheel, and you cut that crimp off, and you put a hose clamp on it.
And is that what was there?
That's what was there.
Oh.
So over time, and I mean, everything's tight, right? I drove that thing 40, 50,000 miles with that hose clamp on it.
Yeah.
And I'd tighten that myself because I had to pull the motor out multiple times.
Yeah, you've disconnected it there.
Disconnected it a bunch of times. So I'd always tighten it back up, and I always go through and I retighten everything. So that hose clamp, I drove the rally. I drove from my house. I drove all over the place on the rally. Drove it all the way to California.
Yep.
And then in that parking lot, this is what I think happened. I'm 90% sure. In that parking lot, it was probably 45 degrees that morning. It's winter in California. It was 40, 45 degrees. Really thick oil, 2050 oil.
Very
extremely high oil pressures.
Yep.
When I went and started that thing up, it blew that line off. That oil pressure, that hose clamp over time,
so I never
loosened itself up enough.
I never realized that was not still the factory crimp.
Yes, it's not. They're expensive. It is now. I guarantee you it is now. So that is what I think happened, and I'm pretty sure that's what Marco thinks happened too. I kind of went the insurance route of like trying to explain to him that maybe something came up and impacted the line.
Right.
Maybe I ran over something.
Right.
They didn't buy it, which is fine because it's like a $40,000 insurance claim, right?
Yeah.
They weren't down with that. They told me to pound sand. And I was going to be like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm going to switch insurance companies and all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? They've done every other claim that I've asked when I ran over something in the road and like, and they've never had a problem. So I'm fine with sticking with that insurance company. I don't think it's what happened. Yeah. So I didn't really push the envelope. No, I'm just so broke that I'm like, I'm going to try. Because at the time, I didn't really know. I'm like, well, it's possible something could have came up and impacted the line.
Honestly, I remember talking to you at that point, and that's what you had thought happened.
Yeah,
you generally thought that when
I went through all kinds of stages of grief. Maybe something ran up and maybe I posted pictures on my Instagram the day before. Maybe someone came and sabotaged the car, loosened the clamp, or tried to fuck with me, or drain the oil right out of the sump. I don't know. Come on. I mean, there are people that do truly hate me, but I mean, the odds of that are pretty slim. Yeah. I don't think that that's what happened either. And I talked to another friend here locally that runs a shop, and this is something that they had seen at the track too.
Oh, really?
So guys, and he specifically asked me, so did you like rev it up and beat the shit out of it when he started? I'm like, dude, no. But that's what would happen at the track. These guys would start up the cold engine, they'd start revving it up to warm it up, and it would blow that oil line off. The same one. The same one that had been hose clamped because they leaked. So that's what happened. Okay. So in my mind, that is what happened. So I flew out, and we'll have Marco on a little bit, and we'll talk about what he thinks happened and all the damage.
Went to Marco.
The car went to Marco, and here's the deal. I call Marco up on the phone. I go, dude, like, motor blew up. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, the motor blew up. And in my head at the time, I'm like, this dude fucking just expected the car. It was just at his shop.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, not really, but that's the train of thought you can go down.
Sure.
I didn't know if that's what happened. But in the back of my mind, I sure was like, well, my car was just at this guy's shop, and it had an oil change, and now it is exploded. So my first train of thought is, could this have been the fault of the shop?
Right.
And I have a decent relationship with Marco. I considered him a friend at the time and now. And so I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. So I called him up. I said, hey, dude, motor blew up. He goes, don't worry about it. I got a guy. He towed the car, tow it back to the shop, and we'll look. Okay. And I said, great. He's like, we'll figure it out. So to his kudos, he was like, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
He's on it. And I think that had it been his fault, he would have owned it.
Yeah.
But I do not think, and this is what everybody is always asking me.
Yeah.
All the time. Why didn't Marco just build you a new engine? It was just at his shop, and then it blew up right afterward.
Okay.
And the answer is because it wasn't his fault. Okay. It was not his fault. That oil line clamp, common failure with that clamp.
That is interesting.
And it's a high pressure line. It was cold that morning. That is what happened. And I am not going to try and pressure someone. And I got this advice from a couple of different people. I didn't know what was going on. So I made some calls to find out what could happen with that oil line. And he checked the brakes. He looked the car over. There's no reason he would ever even have touched that line.
Right.
He wouldn't have been anywhere near it. It was not his fault. It wasn't. He didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do anything. He could have said, sorry, dude, fuck off. But he didn't. He's been a pretty stand-up dude through all this. He's, I wish I would have found out about what was really wrong a little bit sooner.
Okay.
But people are busy. And, and the other question that everybody asks is, there's two more questions.
Okay.
Do you wish you would have built the motor yourself?
Yeah.
Because it's basically a $40,000 engine. Okay.
Wow.
Which is cheaper than it would be.
Wow.
I got some used parts from Marco.
Wow.
He did his best to help me out.
Yeah.
He really did. And kudos to him for doing it, even though he didn't have to.
That's true.
Because it wasn't his fault.
Yep.
So it would have been more. It probably would have been close to a $50,000 engine.
Wow.
And he was a stand-up dude and did everything he could to make it right. They go, was it worth it? And do you wish you would have fixed it yourself?
Right.
Those are the two questions.
Okay.
Was it worth it? Should we save those answers till afterward? Or should I just answer them now? I'll just answer them now. We're already on the train.
What I wanted to clarify is what specifically worth it?
The money that I spent. And it's tough to quantify because I really, truly do not have the money for this.
Yeah.
I truly don't. And that's probably a lot of the reasons that is because I make poor financial decisions in general. And I'm constant. I mean, I spent $20,000 or $30,000 on a $1,000 Mercedes.
That's very true.
Okay.
You did do that.
The reason I don't have any money is because I'm stupid. Okay. Not because I'm like not talented or poor or lazy or something like that. It's because I'm an idiot.
Okay.
So yeah, we came up with the money. I had to sell my daily driver. I sold the Benz. Yeah. I have no car. I'm driving my wife's Golf R now. I gave her my Rolex, resized it for her because she busted her ass off to, work towards making.
I love how you told me that you sold that Rolex.
Yeah. I sold it to my wife.
Yeah, okay.
She loves it. She's wearing it right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, resized and everything. She always shows it to me. Okay, so was it worth it? I don't know yet.
Okay.
And the reason I don't know yet is because I've really kind of been taking it easy on the car. I haven't really driven it very hard.
Okay.
It is faster than it was before.
Yeah.
But I haven't
part of it is you do need to break the motor in.
Break the motor in.
Right.
There's different philosophies with that, right? I mean, it was probably had 200 or 300 miles on it before I even really jumped on it.
Okay.
You know, which is everything's done by then, truly, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
What you're really trying to do is you're trying to get oil into all the proper places and all these things.
Seat the rings.
That's all done. You know, Marco broke it in on the hoist too, and I know that he drove it. Look, I know people were giving me a hard time for romping out a couple of times.
Oh, really?
So many DMs, Instagram by a bunch of know-it-all, like reclining, like
armchair mechanics.
Armchair mechanics. Yes. That's it. Recliner mechanics.
Yeah.
And I basically drove it the same way I drove my other car.
Right.
The one that never burned oil.
Yeah.
Never leaked oil.
Oh, right.
And drove absolutely fucking perfect till it didn't.
Right.
And so it's whatever. I mean, at Volvo even now tolerances are pretty short or pretty small. So a lot of new manufacturers are like, yeah, you don't have to break it in, just drive it.
Interesting.
Like Volvo says you don't need to break it in. BMW says, hey, it's 1,000 miles. I know that Porsche won't even let you rev it up. Like the car physically won't do it.
That makes sense.
Okay, so is it worth it? I don't know yet because I haven't had enough experiences with the car to know if it's worth it yet.
Yeah.
And it has different camshafts.
Okay.
It needs different jetting. It needs to be retuned. It's where the car is right now. Marco's got it.
By the way, is what I asked you before.
I wasn't sure that it would because it's not that much different, but I thought it would be that much different. Turns out it's a lot different. The way that it drives is significantly different. It runs right up to the red line which is at 7,000 RPM set by the rev limiter.
Yeah.
Like you're running into a brick wall. It runs to that so hard.
Wow.
It's honestly ridiculous because you drive by feel.
Yeah.
And you can feel. You learn where the car starts to taper off, and you shift. You can hear it. You don't need to look at the tachometer.
No,
every time.
You can feel the torque and everything taper down.
It's not stopping at 7,000.
It just keeps building.
Yeah. So
wow.
we'll talk to Marco about the characteristics of the engine and what he did and some stuff like that. The other question is, would I rather have built the engine myself? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that will always feel bad that someone else built the engine that's in my car. However, how was I supposed to know?
Right.
How was I supposed to know? I didn't know everything that was wrong inside that motor was wrong. And here's the thing. I can guarantee you this because I'm stupid. I don't have any money. That if I would have towed that car home and shoved it in the garage, pulled the motor out of it and went, oh no, that motor would have gotten put in a box in pieces and put under the counter, and I probably would have bought like some 2.7 or 3 liter or a 3.2 or a 3.6 or whatever it would have been, and I would have thrown it in there.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be anything like it was
or is now.
And it would continually be a disappointment.
Right.
Because it would be
the lesser motor.
Yeah, it would be like your wife. Okay, so your wife gives you the best blowjobs ever, right? And then she goes on vacation. She comes back, and it's not as good as it was. It's halfway.
I thought you were going to say she died and you had to get a new wife.
Oh, well, that too. Yeah, you could get a new wife.
That's a more apt analogy, actually.
Yeah, well, yeah, you leave your wife. You leave her behind and you go to the new wife.
No, she loses all her oil. She threw a rod.
I think you understand what I'm saying, though. It would, if it was not as good as it was, it would always be disappointed. You wouldn't want the blowjobs anymore, and you'd be sad, and then you'd be looking for blowjobs elsewhere.
Oh no!
And it probably would have sent me on a path with that car that wasn't positive.
Yeah.
It would have been a constant disappointment. Every time you drove the car, it would be
a letdown.
It would be a letdown, and it would start a cancer that would have led to selling the car. I can almost guarantee you that. Because
there's also, and I think you're going to get into this, the fact of there is so much value now in that car. And regardless of whether this happened or not.
It's funny. I remember getting in and I shut the door and I was with Andrew Ritter and the speaker grill fell off, and I went, $180,000 car. and then he opened his door, and like it has brand new seals on the doors, and one of them kind of like went, it just kind of started leaning out a little bit, and I just go, $180,000 car. And there was like other things that were just like my front left blinker doesn't work.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, your front left blinker doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, it's $180,000 car, doesn't even need front blinkers. And it's like, the car is like not perfect. But yes. And I also wouldn't have known, and I gave this example to a few people, and some people understood it, some didn't. But if you're walking through the forest, and there's a fork in the road, and you take the left side, and you come out of the trees, and there's like a tank or an army there, just standing there looking at you.
Right.
It's easy to say at that point, I wish I would have went the other way.
Right.
Because you're standing in front of a fucking tank, right? So you would obviously like you would want to have maybe gone the other way.
Right, yeah.
But sometimes the tank is better than the one you don't. Okay?
Except for an empty tank.
An empty tank. Well, this one was running, and it was...
No, I mean an empty oil tank.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, brutal.
Yeah.
You're
welcome.
Hey, you're nice.
Yeah,
thanks, asshole.
Yep.
So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, okay.
I have...
We will talk to Marco.
Yeah, I have no regrets.
That's good.
Of everything that happened, I have no regrets. You know, I guess my only regret is that I had to take a partial loan out on the car to help pay for the engine. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like that, so I'm going to try and pay that off as soon as I can.
Sure.
As soon as possible. Before we talk to Marco, did you see me get that?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Okay, so all this happened, then it went to Marco. It has been a process, which we'll talk to Marco about. And then
I picked up the car.
You went back out.
I went back out
to get the car.
I picked up the car, and first of all, I was like on Instagram, kind of walking into the shop. I had to just turn. I couldn't.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't even. Like I don't. If I remember, like it goes like this. I walk in. I'm like, oh, there it is, and I'm like, oh shit, my heart. And then I turn Instagram off and like put it in my pocket because I was just like completely emotionally discombobulated.
Yeah.
Because the experience of seeing the car for the first time was surreal after it'd been a year and a half since I saw the car.
Right.
Since I saw the car, since it blew up. Well, a little less than a year and a half.
Yeah.
And until that point, it had been like this thing in a faraway place that was causing me pain.
Yes.
Right? And it was causing me stress and mental anguish. And by the way, also, I got fucking COVID the day that my car broke down.
Totally forgot to finish that story.
I was sick for the rest of the freaking time. I was going to go to dinner with Jason Whipple.
Yep.
And I got to the restaurant and got out of the car and puked on the ground. And I'd be like, okay, great. So then I get back in the car, which he let me his R32, by the way.
Oh, right. Yeah, because you didn't have a car.
That's why I got COVID all over his car, which I'm sure he probably just let it sit in the sun for like a week after I dropped it off. What's funny, though, is that parking spot. Anyway, okay. So that's...
the puke parking spot?
The puking parking spot. So I puked, and then from that point on, I was sick for the rest of the trip.
Yeah.
So that was on my birthday. Like all these bad things happened, and it was
bad,
made for an awful year, to be honest.
Yeah,
just not a good way to start 2022. That was start of 2022. Where was I? Oh yeah, I picked up the car.
Yep. So fast forward to last week.
Of course, it's just raining, raining the whole time.
Ah.
The whole time I was in California, it rained, and I can tell you that driving in California in the rain is not like driving in California. I'm sorry, in the rain here.
Why?
Because the greasiness of the roads, it all like comes out of the pavement because it's just like oil and grease just spread everywhere, never washed off for months and months and months and months.
Rain that frequently.
Doesn't
so
rain.
When it does, yeah.
Very, very slippery.
Interesting.
So driving the car in any way, shape, or form was near impossible.
Wow.
You touch the gas and you're sideways instantly. Instantly. So I got maybe like 4 or 5 hours of dry. It was,
and that was it.
Yeah, that was it. So I did get to drive on my way up to Ojai to hang out with Matt Crook.
Yep.
Hung out with him a little bit. Got his Targa running.
Yeah.
Which he had dragged out of a yard.
Okay.
And had been sitting. The last tabs were 2018.
Right. Which doesn't mean it was running then.
No, it just means somebody cared in 2018. Cared enough to title it. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I bet you. And apparently there's like $100 bet, which I didn't
know about.
That I didn't know about. But I told him, I said, dude, I'm going to come out there and get my car.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to drive up there.
Yep.
And that Targa is going to run before I leave.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, everybody said.
You don't, and granted, you had no idea what condition this thing was in.
Sure I did.
Oh, okay.
It had been sitting since 2018. It was a 2.7 CIS. Like, I had like an estimation of it.
Okay.
So, and of course, I asked my buddy Aaron, I asked Mark, I'm like, what's going to be wrong with this thing when I get there?
So, yeah.
They're like, yeah, the CIS fuel head probably is going to be stuck. And, I'm like, yeah, I know about that. And the injectors are going to be shit. I'm like, yeah, I know about that. Is it bleed the injectors? Yeah, okay, I know about that. So I get over there, put gas in it, turn the key on. All the fuel lines just break. They're just like, they just explode. They're brittle and hard. So we have to go and CIS is like 60 to 80 PSI fuel pressure.
Okay.
The regular like fuel injection car is like 30 to 50.
Oh.
Not direct injection. That's like 2,000.
Thousands, yeah.
So we're still at a really high fuel pressure for a rubber line.
Yeah.
So you have to get fuel injection hose. You can't just get radiator line.
Yeah.
So we went and got some fuel line. Turns out the auto parts stores in this town close at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Good, as you should.
Very slow and lazy town. Everything closed. Like, you couldn't even get a cheeseburger after 8 p.m.
Wow.
But we got all the fuel lines, got it to stop leaking, went and bought a battery for it,
Okay.
put the battery in, and lo and behold, she starts to cough a little bit.
Uh-huh.
She starts to cough a little bit.
Pretty soon,
I reach in, I pull up I did unfreeze there's a little plunger. Do you know how CIS works?
Yeah.
Does everybody else know how CIS works?
No.
Okay. So you have a throttle body.
First of all, it's continuous
injection system. Yes.
So usually with a fuel injected car, you get pulses of fuel
Yep.
when the valve opens,
Right.
and it mixes. With CIS, it's just spraying fuel.
Spraying fuel. However, you got to keep in mind that I think in some of the other cycles, it doesn't pull fuel through as hard. I'm not sure how it means any kind of fuel efficiency. I don't know how it does it.
It probably
'Cause they're
gives
always
it
spraying.
less fuel than it would otherwise need if it was only going then. So
Well,
it builds up.
here's how. Okay, here's how it does it.
Okay.
You have a throttle body.
Uh-huh.
Okay, every car's got one of those,
Yep.
except for a diesel. Does not have a
We
throttle
don't like
body.
those, though, so we don't worry.
We're not going to talk about those
Yeah.
right now. As a throttle body, you open it up,
Uh-huh.
and it changes the vacuum pressure.
Correct.
And on the other side, on the engine side, not on the filter side, on the engine side of the throttle body,
Yeah.
in between the throttle body and the intake manifolds in the engine,
Uh-huh.
is the CIS fuel metering system.
I thought it was before the throttle body is the meter plate.
You're right. Sorry. You're right. You're right. So okay. So
first, the air.
you have the metering plate, and then you have the throttle body, and then you have the engine. You're correct.
Yeah.
So when you open the throttle,
Yeah.
there is a little bowl.
Correct.
Okay, and it has a flat piece of metal in it.
Plate. Yeah.
It's a little plate, and it is balanced, and there's a weight on the other side.
Uh-huh.
And at the fulcrum point, slightly off from the fulcrum point where this thing levers back and forth,
Right.
as you open the throttle, the air flows through and it pulls up on this metering plate.
Right.
And as it pulls up on this metering plate, the fuel pressure pushes through the plunger,
Uh-huh.
which is being actuated near the fulcrum of that
Right. And
seesaw.
that basically, the amount of air pulling down on the barn door
changes the fuel pressure
changes
to the
amount
injectors.
of fuel to the injector.
Yes. So that's how it works. So what you have to do sometimes is bleed those because there's air gets in the lines,
Sure.
whatever.
And then it
So you have to
doesn't
reach
spray.
in and you have to. Well, the car just keys on. You push up on this metering plate,
Uh-huh.
and when the cars haven't run for a really long time, they go. And then they sound great. And his kind of sounded like. It didn't sound very good. But over the time of getting it running, and I could hold the throttle open, it started to run really well.
Nice.
And then pretty soon it ran great.
Really?
This thing runs out great. I know for a fact it is running on the shittiest gas known to man.
Okay.
So, Matt, if you are listening to this, go change your fuel filter right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so we put some seafoam in it.
Yeah.
Because all the fluids have been drained, so it had an empty tank.
Oh, okay.
So we put the seafoam in it with a full tank.
Yep.
I said, run this through.
Yep.
Change the fuel filter.
Yes.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Change the filter. I said about 3 times.
Wow.
You're going to need to do this because it's just got all kinds of varnish on the bottom of the tank.
The tank itself, yeah.
It just needs to be cleaned out and cycled through.
I
Or
mean-
you could just take the gas tank out and have a guy do it. But I doubt that's going to happen.
Did you do a valve adjustment? Did you change the oil? Did you do
It didn't have any
ignition
oil
system?
in it either, so it's got new oil.
Okay.
All the stuff for the ignition system was there, like all the plugs, cap, rotor. I didn't do any of it. Once it ran, I'm like, it runs.
I'm done.
I pulled one plug to look at it.
Yeah, and it was
It was great. It looked fine.
Okay.
It didn't really need to be changed. These things don't like. they need to be done, and it's great because then you have a baseline of like, all this stuff is great, all this stuff is new.
Right.
But a lot of times, a cap and a rotor is not going to go bad just sitting there.
No,
a spark plug is not going to go bad just sitting there.
That's true.
It's things you want to change because it's great to be like, fresh start, fresh oil, fresh tune-up, and go. That's always nice to do, but it's not always necessary to just have a good time, get it running. Anyway, got it running. Nobody gave me $100. I don't know what was supposed to happen there.
You didn't get $100?
I didn't get $100. I did, however, get a bunch of beers and a lunch and a dinner, which is fine with me.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. I guess that's the whole story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're at. That leads us to now.
There was a street fight.
Oh yeah. Okay. I was with Michael Gideon, who's got a cool YouTube channel, by the way. You should check it out. He's kind of starting one, getting it going, working on different 911 stuff. Anyway, so we're in the car, like driving. Where did we go? We went to pick something up. Oh, we borrowed a fuel line off of another engine that Matt had at his garage.
Okay.
So I grabbed this fuel line. We hop back in my car and we're driving. And I pull up to a light and I go, are those guys fighting? There's dudes out in the middle of the street and they're all like kind of swinging at each other and they suck so bad at it.
Yeah.
That I was like, they're just
play fighting.
Like,
I don't know.
They're just play fighting.
Yeah.
They're just swinging. I mean, these dudes.
Like, it looks like a joke.
They could have been standing in front of a sided house 1 feet away from it and they still wouldn't have hit the thing. There's no way. They wouldn't have been able to do it. They were that bad, swinging, missing. Probably about 10 to 15 seconds of this, of me going like, look at these idiots. And all of a sudden, one makes contact with one of the guys. He goes down. And 4 of these dudes hop on this guy and they start kicking him. In the head, in the chest.
That's not good.
I'm like, whoa, okay. We got to put a stop to this immediately. And it didn't cross my mind at the time. But in hindsight, it's pretty good to know that Michael is like a jiu-jitsu black belt.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah.
So had something gone awry,
terribly wrong,
it would have been.
Yeah. I have a feeling a lot of these guys must just be like waiting to just beat someone's ass, right? How could you not? If you were like a black belt in something, how could you not want to beat someone's ass immediately?
I don't agree with that.
Oh, come on. Come on.
The only reason I disagree is because then that same analogy, if you carry a gun, are you just waiting to use it?
That is the truth.
You know what I mean?
You got to keep in mind that someone like that is supposed to know their limits.
Yeah.
And they can't just kill someone with their fist because their body is a deadly weapon.
Sure.
We learned this in concealed carry permit classes.
Correct.
You learned about this.
Yes.
It's a great analogy. Anyway, so I go, I'm probably 75 yards away.
Okay.
One of the times that I drove the car pretty hard.
Whomped on
First gear, second gear, pulled up, stopped, flat out. And I don't have a horn, so I just revved the shit out of the car right next to him. And those dudes stood up so fucking fast. Must have been like out of a movie. This 911 comes pulling up. And I said, that's it. You're done. It's over.
Yeah.
He's on the ground. It's over. And I was swearing. I can be loud.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, it's done.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know is Michael had already gotten out of the car. And he was back around the car. Like behind the car.
Yeah.
But they stopped. This guy's like bleeding. He's cut right here on his.
Geez.
He's got like the typical boxer cut. Like right here, it's bleeding down his face. And he's like, oh, mother, you F word this and not the fuck F word, the other F word. He's like, oh, F word this, you're just a little F. And I'm like, dude, these dudes were just beating your ass. It's over. It's done. Get in your van and go.
Oh, the other F word.
Yeah.
Give me that one.
This other chick comes running out. And it was either over her pussy or the drugs she had. I don't know which, but it was one of those two things that this chick was holding out on somebody. Or giving it to someone and not giving it to someone else.
Okay.
It was my thought.
Just
It was a really intense situation.
Oh yeah.
Because I was not wanting to get out of the car.
Right.
Michael was already out of the car.
Yeah.
So when I saw him, I was like unbuckling like seatbelt. Yeah. And then they left. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a fighter.
No.
I'm just not. Honestly, I don't want to get in a fight.
I also would have been concerned about my $180,000 car that's right here that I just got, that they could start
of course.
in or
sure.
Who knows?
Yeah,
right?
Fine. But I was most concerned about the guy that could be killed.
Oh yeah, no, I 100% would have done the same thing.
Yeah, it got ugly real fast, and we were on him like this, and that dude was still, Still pretty fucked up. All right, we've got to call Marco.
On that note,
we're going to call Marco and talk about other things that are fucked up, like my motor and what he discovered when he opened it up. I'd like to also hear a little bit about his shop too. And I think there's a lot of history there.
That'd be interesting.
It was his father's shop.
Oh, that's cool.
And I want to hear a little bit about that because I know he's, I was over the course of this period of time, I had a lot of people in my ear. A lot of, like all these different perspectives and stuff going on about shops, not his shop, just shops in general, especially in California, and the cost and all these different things. And I've learned that Marco is one of the good ones. Marco, thanks so much for coming to hang out with me, man.
Glad to be here, Kris.
What a journey it has been, huh? What a journey it has been. Now, I just got done telling the whole story, 40 minutes the whole story, but I left some meat on the bone for you. I kind of explained what I thought happened, but I wanted, of course, get your opinion on what happened as well. But before that, I want to hear about TLG, the shop. And as an outsider who knows you as, I know you kind of well, but I know that the shop was owned by your dad. And I would love to hear about how your father built the shop and how you came into owning it, obviously, and what it was like to be around the shop as a young kid and how it influenced you growing up.
That's a lot. Okay, so, I mean, I feel like I've told the story a lot over the last, I don't know, however many years, but the short story is that...
Give me the long one.
I'm sorry?
Give me the long one. We got time. Give me the long one. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying you don't have to be, there's no sense for brevity. You just tell how you want to tell.
Okay. All right. My dad was born back east, grew up in Queens, New York, and always was kind of a motorhead. He was technically proficient naturally. It was one of those things, people are naturally they're naturally gifted in certain things, some people can write, some people can draw. My dad could turn a wrench. He just had this knack for it. Could fix anything, the guy.
Is there also a knack for people that just break things? Is that also a...
Because that's Kris.
Because I've got that one.
Yeah.
I've got that one.
Well, taking apart is a lot different than putting back together, Kris.
Exactly.
Yeah, he stole his cousin's car when he was 13. It was like a 50-something Chevy, and he pulled it up under a tree, and he ratchet strapped the motor out of the front, and then pushed the car back, dug a hole, dropped the straight six in the hole, pushed the car forward, and dropped a V8 into it, and she never knew until she went to drive it, and suddenly she had a car that was doing burnouts. My cousin, she's like my second cousin, so it's my dad's cousin, Fran. She tells that story and just laughs like crazy. So that's kind of who my dad was, just into modifying cars. And as he grew up, he needed to get a gainful employment somewhere. And so he went to the local gas station. And the owner of the shop had a Porsche, and they worked on a lot of English cars, Jags and Triumphs and what have you, MGs. And he started by sweeping the floor, and, he would sweep the floor and then he'd lean on the broom, and they'd go, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm done with my job." And they're like, "No, you ain't. Don't let the boss see you leaning on the broom. Here, clean these parts." And then it was like, okay, well, I'm done with that. What next? And okay, take this apart. Okay, put this back together. And next thing you know, he was actually working in the shop as a mechanic. And again, showed technical proficiency very quickly, as he has told it. So, there's no documentation, but this was the story I was raised with. Anyway, he worked there for a while, and then got a job at the dealer on the East Coast. And he never remembered which one it was. It was somewhere out on Long Island is all he could tell me. But, he was young and dumb and, just an excitable individual. And so he was working at the Porsche dealer out there. And one day he decided to take a road trip with his buddy, Bob Martin. And so my father and Bob Martin loaded up my dad's Beetle with all their tools and clothes and drove west on vacation. My dad had a bunch of friends from back east who had moved out to LA and were living in the Van Nuys area. They had sort of just kind of congregated here. And so he was coming out to see his buddies.
So Van Nuys area, like back then, that's a blue collar area, right? Back then?
Van Nuys?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the San Fernando. It's literally the center of the San Fernando Valley, right? So there was sort of a nightlife, I mean, this was 1974-ish, 75-ish. And, Van Nuys has always been blue collar, but it also had like the cruising scene. And, it was that Van Nuys Boulevard was always car dealerships. And it was just sort of a place, right? Where, near Hollywood, near Studio City. So anyway, people congregated here in the Valley. And so my dad came out on vacation with Bob to see their buddies. And it was, I want to say it was February 74 or 75. And, he got to California on a Friday, opened the door of the Beetle, got out, and it was 70 and sunny. And he looked around and he went to his buddy's house and they're like, yeah, it's like this all the time. So he picked up the phone and called his friends back. He said, sell my shit. I'm never coming home. And they sold all his possessions and mailed him the money, and he set up shop. And my dad, like I said, he arrived on a Friday and he started searching the papers and he had a job at a Porsche dealer on Monday.
That's very, so I've been to California a bunch of times, but this last time I could almost be like, sell my wife, sell my children, sell everything I had. I ain't coming home. I'm over it.
The snow where you are is like 6 feet deep.
Yes,
the snow where we are is a quarter inch. And that's a lot.
I'm over it. So we're talking
I'm curious what your dad's parents thought of all this. Like, how old was he at that point?
So my dad is the third of three, and he's separated from his sister by about 12 or 13 years. So he was the oops baby.
Yeah.
His mom died when he was 17, and at this point he was 24 years old when he did this trip. So his mom had been long dead, and his sister and his dad was staying with his sister at the time, and his dad was elderly. I never met my grandparents on my dad's side. But I think my dad's dad passed away in like 78 or something like that, 79, right before I was born. My mom got to meet him, but he never met she never met my grandmother on my dad's side. So anyway, he was a latchkey kid. He kind of raised himself as long as he wasn't, bleeding face down in a gutter. And even if he was kind of on his own to like do his own thing, come and go as he pleases. And he had a really tight knit group of friends that he grew up with that kind of like moved out here, and he came out to see him and he stayed. So, he got a job. He landed on a Friday, won ads on Saturday, had a job interview on Monday, and was in the shop working by Tuesday, we'll call it. And he had his own tools. He brought everything with him. Mm-hmm. So
what was a Porsche dealership job like back then? Like you think of you walk into a dealership now, and it's so fucking clean and it's perfect. And there's computers on carts wheeling around.
Yeah, they were the weird import brand.
Was it like an Audi / Porsche situation?
Yeah, it was Merlin Olsen Porsche Audi. Okay. So my dad was actually an Audi guy. Like they stuck him on the shitty jobs, right? But he was really good at it. He was technically proficient. So he could churn through those line jobs really fast. And as a result, he got to do the Porsche training, and he made really good friends with the shop foreman, a man named Wolf Brooker. And Wolf and my dad, Wolf was an old German dude, used to work for Vasek back in the day. He was a truck driver for Vasek, and ended up at Merlin Olsen. And Wolf had a son named Kerry, and Kerry was the mop bucket kid at the dealership. Well, to this day, Kerry is still a very close family friend. My dad and Wolf were very close until Wolf passed away. It's one of those like sort of family things. They became fast friends, and I don't remember Wolf ever coming to the shop and working. This is our third location. So at the location previous to this, there was always like this Hazet tool cart with looked like a tub, right? And it had like the 3 shelves that like lifted up. That was Wolf's, and he kept it at my dad's shop for years and years. So Wolf was always sort of like a background fixture. And yeah, I have books in my cabinet that I use to this day that still have his name on the inside cover, things that he gave to my dad when he retired and didn't work anymore. So, it's a family business. It's a historical business. It's been around forever since so anyway, my dad worked at Merlin Olsen. And then, he may have had a drinking problem. He may have had a falling out with management and he may have gone looking for another job. Anyway, he ended up taking a job at Fulmer Porsche Audi.
Okay.
But the problem with Fulmer was it was really far away from where my parents were living at the time. So my mom sort of met my dad in that early period when he moved to California. They started dating, moved in together, and they were a couple. And my dad took this job at Fulmer, and one day he was out at work, and I think it was like Riverside. Fulmer was in Riverside. My mom got into a car accident, and she was all busted up, and she was in the hospital. And it took him like an hour and a half or 2 hours to get home, to get to her from work. And he was just like, I can't live like this. Like, this is bullshit. I need to be closer to my wife, And so he quit. And they had been recently married, and they discussed kind of the next thing. And I don't know whose idea it was to open the shop, but they, my mother and my father, made the decision to open TLG using the money that they were gifted by their friends and family for their wedding. So this company was seeded by my parents' wedding.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's like it's a real family fucking business, man. My mom, so my dad's name was Tony, my mom's name is Lois, and the last name is Gerasi. So that's how we get the TLG. And she was in line at the office, I don't know, the business office for the city or something, and they're like, "What's the name of the place?" And she's like, TLG. And like that's how it became what it is. It was never really a plan. It was just sort of roll the dice, wing it, and see what you get. That's kind of how this place was for a lot of years in the beginning. But it was a new business. It was the late 70s. Porsches were plentiful in the Valley. They opened a shop. The first shop location was in a gas station, actually. Like, you have a gas station, and then you have the pumps out front. Then you have a little like tune-up shop in the back. Well, that was my dad's shop. It was a little tune-up shop. And I could tell you tons of stories about how he got his first employee, and so on and so forth. Just
when were you an employee? When was your first
Well, I wasn't born. I wasn't around. I wasn't born until I wasn't even a thought. I don't think I was ever a thought. That just kind of happened. So that was like in 78, they opened the shop. And then in 79, the property was sold. And they couldn't afford to buy it. I mean, they're just these kids, basically kids. And, that property is still there today. And I used to live right down the street. My parents used to live right down the street. I mean, it's very much a small town in that regard. But from there, my dad moved the shop up to about a couple blocks from where we are right now. And unfortunately, it was on a main street. So the cost of real estate was really high. And he was there from 79 to like 86 or 87 when he realized he didn't need, main street frontage for this business. He needed space is what he needed. And so he found the location that we're in today, and we've been here since 1987 or 88. I'm a little fuzzy. I was born in 80. So I was 7 years old, 8 years old. I remember the first shop. And like I said, I remember Wolf's tool trolley. I remember learning how to ride my bicycle in the parking lot. I remember a lot of things from that time period. And I also remember moving into this building that we're in now. Like I'm 42. And so I grew up in this building. Like essentially where we are now was sort of the only place I really knew, growing up.
When did you start working on cars with him? Well,
shit. I mean, I would go to work with him. My parents, they didn't have any money. So this is like no babysitters, but whenever the family could babysit, I would be with the family or I would be in preschool. And then there were these times when I couldn't do anything. So I went to work with my parents.
Yeah. TLG daycare.
I went to work with my dad. Yeah. TLG daycare. Exactly. And, so I was around the shit as early as a bassinet, I have a vague memory of, my dad putting a 10 millimeter socket and wrench in my hand and saying, anything on this motor that this fits, put in this bucket. And, he tells the story, or he used to tell the story of how he came back and the bucket was filled with stuff that those wrenches didn't fit. And I had found a way to disassemble more than I was given. But he also then he saw other tools on the ground. But like I was proficient enough to go to the toolbox or go to the guy that worked with my dad and get the tool I needed to keep working on the job. And I was probably 5, 6, 7 years old at that time. I was pretty young, 4 or 5.
That's really cool.
I started at the shop working on bicycles.
Right. As many of us did.
Taking shit apart that wasn't important.
Well, to be fair, like if we're talking 80s, late 80s, you're 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, working on shit. Porsche, I think it's interesting to remember, or it's important to remember that Porsche wasn't this thing like it is now, where it's like, and it's like it's just this thing that's like unattainable. You're not even supposed to drive them. I mean, in the 80s, they were just a car, right? At least from my perspective, is like the people that I talk to when I look back, they weren't this super special bauble that they've become today.
Well, so it's funny you say that. I was around for the awakening, I'll call it, when people realized, holy shit, these cars are fucking way undervalued for the experience that they give you, for the reliability that they give you, for the utility that they give you. I was here for that.
Yeah.
I was of age, and I clearly remember when the prices went from $10,000 for a 73S to $100,000 for a 73S. I was there for it. I remember it clearly.
What period of years was that specifically?
When did it happen? It happened in like 05, 06 was when the awakening began.
Yep.
And by 07, when the money was cheap, everyone was dumping money at these cars. And then when everything went to hell in 08, the prices rolled back, but they didn't get cheap. Yep. They stayed expensive.
Well, before we get into like modern TLG, I want to ask if there's any lessons that your father gave you that you still think about when you're running the shop. Anything that you learned from, maybe you didn't like say, well, Marco, you really got it. I'm just talking about things that you were imparted upon you by your father with the shop and Porsche and everything that you still have habits to for this day.
Well, I mean, there's ways of doing things that he taught me that I don't want to even say that I do them the same. Everything I do is kind of built on that foundation, right? I took what he gave me and I made it my own. Right. So he taught me how to take things apart and put them together. And then I found the methods of doing so that best fit me and how I think and how I work. The lessons that he taught me that I still use today are things like integrity, honesty, fair treatment of everybody, fair pricing. I mean, yeah, this shit's fucking expensive, but like, if I could, in some cases, what I can buy a part for versus what the retail price is, I mean, we're talking 1,000% spread, right? I'm not a joke. Like, if something costs me $2, but it retails for $200, I'm not going to be the dick who charges $200. But there are people out there who do. Yeah. I'm the guy who will charge you $25. I'm making a killing on the price, but you're saving $125. Like, right. That's what my dad taught me. My dad taught me in very simple terms that everybody's got to eat. You got to eat and I got to eat. And the fairest price is somewhere in the middle, and you just do the best you can all the time, operate with honesty and integrity, do what you say what you mean. That's just some adult shit.
Yeah, that goes beyond running a shop. That's just,
I'm sorry?
That's just life. That's what everybody should be doing.
There's a lot of people who who don't operate like that. There's a lot of people in this world, that, and in the car business that don't operate that way. I ate so much shit on cars when my dad died and I took over, when my head wasn't right and I was still working, and I put a car together and it was fucked up. I took it back apart and I fixed it. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. I lost my ass, but I did it. And the guy's still my client and he's still happy and he knows what happened and everybody's fine. You can't win them all.
Right.
But I think like, I guess you were asking me for like specific.
No, that's good. I was open-ended. It was.
Yeah. That's honesty and integrity is what my father taught me, be a man of your word, be an honest businessman. Don't be a scumbag. It's just pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah, it truly. You think it would be just that easy, but as we know from the reputation of other shops, that the problem is that there's a never-ending line of idiots that will give people their money. So you can it's great to have the return customer, but at the same time, man, there's other idiots out there that'll go anywhere. It's just how it is.
I have a couple very specific examples. I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to call them idiots or whatever. I'm just going to say that I have had clients come to me and say, I want you to do this. And I said, I won't do that. And they said, but I'm paying you. And I said, I don't want your money to do that. It's not right. And now whether it's not right for me or not right for the car, that is open-ended, and every situation is different. But like, there's certain things I won't do. Like I won't work on cars. Like I won't work on fake Speedsters. They're Volkswagens. I'm not a Volkswagen shop. I won't work on V8 swaps because I don't work on Chevys or Fords. I just don't. Not to say that they're not good cars. I'm sure they're great for somebody. I'm not your guy.
Right.
I won't modify certain things a certain way because I don't think that it's fair to the car. And I think long term, you're going to be happy you listened to me. I don't backdate cars, because I think it's cutting up a perfectly good G-body car to make it something it's not. For the amount of money you're going to dump into this shit, buy a fucking early car and dump the money in it. You're going to end up with something that's worth more in the end.
Yeah. Is that happening less and less now? The backdate, is the backdating happening less and less? I feel like I hear about it less.
No, it's just as popular now as it ever was. The quality candidates that are worth the quality candidates are getting harder to find. You used to do it with the shitty cars. Well, the shitty cars are gone. And so now you start doing with better and better and better cars. So then the real good cars are gone,
right?
Or not available at reasonable pricing. It's
You think the cars are worth what they're worth?
What?
Do you think the cars are worth what they are? What people are paying for them?
Well, it's all relative,
Well, sure, but it's still there's been a meteoric rise in the last 2-3 years. Is it warranted?
I think that every case is independent of the other. Honestly, I have seen some shit sell on Bring a Trailer where I wanted to throw my computer across the room. Yep. And I've seen some shit go on Bring a Trailer that should have sold for twice as much. I think that every single thing needs to be taken on a case-by-case basis. On the whole, I think pricing is a little nuts, yeah. But does that mean it's wrong? No, it just means that I can't afford the shit, and I got in at the right time. My 911 is one that's been in my family since 1991. I inherited it when I sold my yellow car because I owed my parents $10,000 because they lent it to me to buy a house. And I had to pay the piper, so I had to sell my car.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes. It was a means to an end. And I got another one down the road.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a tough.
It's tough. We've talked about it quite a bit on this podcast. I just wanted to get your thought on it. Okay, so do you remember what you were doing and where you were when this guy named Kris called you up and said, dude, my motor blew up? Like, what was that like?
It was a Sunday morning. I had just woken up and I was hanging out with my kids. That's why I don't give people my phone number.
Yeah. Well, I would have been sitting out there for a long time. If not, dude, I remember I sat there and I had your name pulled up and I was staring at it. And I'm like, I do not want to do this.
And you did the right thing.
I don't know what to do because I'm in an unfamiliar place. And I just was like, I don't know what to do. I had cried. I was done crying, so I wasn't going to be crying on the phone. But I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I didn't know what was wrong. You know, it was tough. And I was like, I have no idea what to do. So I just called you. And I didn't know.
Well, I mean, look, it was a Sunday morning. It was cold as shit outside.
Sure was.
And it was fucking cold. I think it was like in the 30s. It was about this time of year, wasn't it? I think.
Well, it was January, so it was probably even
January.
colder.
Okay. Yeah, it was December, January, but it was like winter.
It was January 2nd, actually. Yeah, it was the day before my birthday. That's how I know. It was the day before my birthday. Happy birthday. Fuck you. Yeah,
happy birthday. Bite the bullet. Okay, so yeah, I was hanging with my kids. I get this text message or phone call. I can't recall exactly, but I do remember immediately thinking, what the hell did I do wrong?
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of.
Yeah, that was what I thought too.
When you were on my phone, I was like, okay, he's all right. In order of how my brain works, it's okay. Is the person okay? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Put that away. Mm-hmm. Is the car okay? No. Okay. Who was the last person to touch it? Me. Well, what did I do wrong? Why is the car broken? Right. And I started going. My head just went for a ride. And I honestly, I couldn't think of anything I could have done that would have led us to where we were. Right. And
I mean, I have to admit, at the time, I wanted it to be your fault so bad.
Yeah, no shit. I wanted it. Nothing.
I wanted it to be your fault. And so what ended up happening? Like, what did you discover? What did you discover? Like, we'll skip ahead through all this other bullshit, but what do you think actually happened once you inspected the car? And then maybe talk about the discovery process of cracking it open and seeing everything.
All right. Well, I mean, the moment we put the car in the air, we knew what happened. We knew how it died, right? The return line to the tank from the engine had separated like that. So how did that happen? Well, it was really cold out that day. When it's really cold, the oil is really thick and the pressure is up. And, it was the hose that was there was older. The clamp that was there was a hose clamp. It had worked for however long until it didn't work anymore. And that's just kind of, when it's that cold, rubber isn't rubber. Rubber is plastic, right? And it doesn't, it's almost impossible to say that, any one thing is a cause. It's usually a confluence of events, right? So I think ice cold outside, ice cold air temp led to really, really cold rubber hose that was old. So it was already a little hard. The clamp just couldn't bite it hard enough. And that cold oil led to a little bit of a higher oil pressure than normal and just pushed the line right off. But then it takes seconds for the motor to completely pump itself dry.
Yeah.
And once it's over, man.
I can't believe how that long that thing ran on the freeway with no oil.
Nice. But here's the thing. The early cars up to 73, they didn't have oil lights. They didn't get an oil light to 74. But you know what you call an oil light, right? It's too late light. If that oil light's on, you're fucked anyway. So it doesn't matter. It's just how quick you shut it off. You were actually quite quick. You didn't saw the motor in half. So
I can honestly tell you it was within a second when it made that noise till I was clutching car off.
Did you see the oil pressure gauge?
No. In hindsight, like I said, I looked at an Instagram video and I saw that there's no pressure. I was like, oh, California is great. Look at this. On my way to Cars and Coffee. And then you can just see like the needles just like whack, just dead. And it was making a whirring sound in hindsight and all these different things. And you would let off the throttle and it was kind of grabby. It's what friction will do. Friction is a powerful force, just like gravity. And yeah.
The engine was braking.
Yeah, it was physically braking. And man, it's strange. I still it was probably 5 miles of freeway driving with no oil before it finally just let go. It had to have been.
That's a testament.
It is.
That's a testament to the car. I mean, these fucking things will go.
Whoever built that thing originally, like that dude.
I wanted to ask Marco what else was wrong in the motor
I'm sure
that he could discover.
I would say kudos to Liqui Moly with the endurance racing GT whatever fucking oil that was in there. I mean, to even run that long is pretty incredible. Anyway, so when you
it was Brad Penn.
Was
I had changed the oil?
What did I have Brad Penn in there that time?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I run all the time.
I've run different oils. So well, hell yeah, to Brad Penn. That shit's good too. Nice and green.
The bomb diggy.
Yeah, lots of zinc in that. Okay, so you take the thing apart. What did you think you were going to find? Because I think we talked about maybe it spun a bearing, but what did?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I expected. I mean, I what do you expect, right? I expected shrapnel of some sort. I didn't know how bad it was going to be. I never ran it. I never even tried. Once I saw that line was disconnected and you told me what happened, I didn't even try to run the car because I didn't want to make anything worse than it already was, which was pretty awful. I mean, you lost everything inside the case, everything,
every moving part, right?
Yeah, everything except the case you lost. And then hey, look, you could have lost the case too, but you didn't, right?
Yeah.
Had you kept going, had you not shut it off and stuff your foot to the floor, you just sawed the motor in half. I've seen that happen on the freeway. Guy in an SC, lost number 5 rod bearing and just kept driving.
Why is it always number 5?
It's the last one to get oil.
Mm-hmm.
When you say saw the case in half, what actually happens?
The rod breaks either at the small end or the big end, and then just pieces start swinging around at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 RPMs and saws the case in half.
Wow. Yeah. So we had a pretty catastrophic failure, it looks like. And I just look at that stuff and I go, I imagine the physics behind bending a steel rod like that. And just the energy and the forces that it takes to destroy something so severely. I mean, I did it good.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it right. Go all the way. But I mean, I've never seen a main cap that I've never seen a rod cap that bad before. That was, I mean, you hammered that sucker flat.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
I did a good job. I did a great job.
In the end, you benefited from a couple. So look, we figured out what happened, and not long after that, I took my own motor apart, and you were the beneficiary of that.
Yeah.
Because there were pieces in my motor that I knew were good. No, because I put it together and I took it apart. Like, I knew everything about it. You were the beneficiary. I wasn't going to use them again because I'm doing something else for my own motor. So you got to cranking rods that, would have been harder to come by because they don't grow on trees.
There's no question about it. In hindsight, everything that happened, I mean, you're a stand-up guy for helping me as much as you did because you didn't have to. I said that earlier too.
Look, I don't feel like I was responsible, but I was the last person to touch it. So, there's a little bit of personal shit that you put on these things. I take this very personally.
Yeah.
But also, like, look, it's an opportunity to upgrade, right? So you got the Potter rods, you got the 964 oil pump now,
So why do I want those rods instead of the rod? Let's go through the motor a little bit. That's another question. Everybody's like, so what's done anything? So why do I care about having the powder rods versus the rods I already had?
Oh, I mean, they're lighter and stronger than the stock rod. So the motor will spin faster. It'll spin up faster and it'll hang together at a higher RPM without any issue.
Right, and it'll run right up to the red line that it has right now with no problem. I mean, it hits. I cannot believe. I didn't think it was going to feel different. I thought it was going to feel the same, and I was like steeling myself for this disappointment. And right now, I'm at the point now where I don't even know what it actually feels like because it's so much better, and that rev limiter is in the way. It is incredible how much different it feels with just,
put different cams in it too.
Different cams, different rods. The valve train is different. There's a lot of difference in this thing, even though it's still a short stroke 3.2. And in my opinion, what you've built and what you've put together, I really like the short stroke 3.2. They're getting harder to build now, I think. But I think that iteration of an air-cooled engine, aside from like just being stupid, is one of the best best hybrids that you can put together. Hybrid from disc brakes than anything that you can build for an air-cooled 911.
Well, the thing is, dollar for dollar, it's the same cost almost to build a 3.2 short stroke as it is a 3.5 long stroke. Like the piston size, is the same for both motors, and you come down to buying things like cranks and rods and custom pistons if you need them or whatever. I mean, everything is $35,000. It doesn't matter if it's a fucking 2-liter or a 3.6. Wow. It's $35,000.
Right.
It's $35,000. Or if you want to get crazy, it's $55,000. You just keep piling money on top of shit. But like a 2-liter. Like I got a 2-liter here, and the girl is wonderful. She drives the shit out of this car. She says, "Well, how much is it going to be?" I said, "It's going to be $35,000." She doesn't even look at it. I said, "I don't have to." I've done 7 motors in the last year that were all within that price range. Give or take a few $1,000, but like they're all right there, and it's not anything other than the cost of parts and the cost of machining. My labor is basically the same. It's 60 hours, which is light. It's 60 hours. That's what I charge. At shop rate. But so that's why you don't see these motors. You don't see 3.2s and you don't see 3.2 short strokes because someone can build a 3.5. Mm-hmm. And everyone wants more and bigger and whatever, right?
I would argue that the amount of power in my car it's perfect.
Sufficient.
Yeah,
Sufficient.
It's not scary. It's not scary fast. I don't want scary fast. I want just right.
Well, I mean, sometimes scary fast is just right.
Yeah.
But what I'm driving at you here is that the American mentality is that more is more, right? So people have lost sight, I think. This is like a very large kind of generalization, and also something you can spin yarns about forever. But people have lost the idea of feel, right? And personality and character. So the great thing about Porsches and the air-cooled engine in general is that the personality and characteristics of a 2-liter is different than a 2.2, which is different than a 2.4, which is different than a high compression 2.4 built with 2.2S pistons, which is very different than a low compression 2.7 RS compared to an andiled high compression 2.7 RS. And every single iteration has its own personality characteristics, and more isn't necessarily more when you step back and you just sit in the driver's seat and experience the car as a whole unified thing, right? Because what looks good on paper and when you're bench racing your buddies doesn't always translate to a better driving experience. And I think, again, that's something that we can discuss at length, ad nauseum. I think that's missing from the air-cooled Porsche culture these days, right? It's becoming the R group. It happened years ago. It became an arms race, right? Everyone wanted to build bigger, better, badder motors, 4 liters, 4.2s, whatever, right? But everyone forgot how wonderful an original 2.2S motor could be, and the characteristics and driving experience that can give you. I just finished one for a guy, and I was like, hey, man, this thing was awesome to build, and I love how it came out, but it's not going to make a ton of horsepower. He goes, it's going to make exactly the horsepower it was designed to make. That's what I wanted, because that's the car I want to drive.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I guess I off on a little bit of a tangent, but that's what's so great about the 3.2 short stroke. You get the benefits of the larger displacement, which would be the 98s, right? But you have that 70.4 stroke. So it really spins up quick. And then you lighten up the rotating assembly with lighter connecting rods, and it spins up even quicker. And it's just a very alive motor. The motor likes to just spin. I mean, and spin and spin and spin, and it's not going to make a ton of torque. It's going to make 20 foot-pounds of torque less than a 3.5. But it'll a 3.5, you could make them spin, but they don't sound the same. They don't feel the same. They're just different.
I want to ask you, Marco, because there are a lot of folks who are not air-cooled people listening, and you talk about the cost of building these motors and how you just know it's going to be around that 35, and how it goes machining and parts. And what is so unique about these motors that you don't hear about rebuilding an LS or anything where it's that expensive to machine or buy parts?
And if you do spend that much money machining and parts, you've got 2,000 horsepower.
Right.
Okay, that's fair. So the difference is the amount of people who touch them.
Okay, why is that?
I'm not a runner machine. I don't run a machine shop. I can't answer that question.
I think it's when you look at the way that
no. I'm not being dismissive. I mean, that's when you boil it down, right? Mm-hmm. There are a handful of machine shops in North America that will touch.
I see what you mean.
A flat 6.
It's because it is so unique and specialized. That's what makes it expensive.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. I have been constantly searching for machine shops. There are the known quantities, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't have to name names to let everyone know who they are, because you already know all of them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gone over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and I've knocked on doors and I've said, look, I've got this, and I need a machine shop that I can count on to turn this around in 4 to 12 weeks, because I can't wait 36 weeks for this shit. I can't wait 24 weeks. Time is money in my business, and I need to turn and burn, right? And they all go, we love to do it, but we're so backed up with our V8 stuff, and then for us to tool up and do this other work doesn't make logical sense to us. We're already backlogged 6 months.
Right.
Well,
wow.
And you have to think, there are machine shops all over this great country, and you got 5 that'll touch a flat 6, and they can charge whatever the fuck they want to charge.
What doesn't make
set
sense.
The price.
Well, I think.
What do you mean doesn't make sense? Supply and demand.
You're forgetting the fact
that the shit I've ever seen.
I know, but why, Marco? Then don't I just start a machine shop? Because I'm going to specialize in that.
I don't know.
And then
I don't know. No, and I don't mean to be snotty. Why don't you?
No, why don't
you want a business plan? Here's a business plan. Go out and buy a Rottler. Get to work.
I think the issue is that the learning curve is very steep. The consequences for failure and not doing it right are very high. And it is a very unique motor.
You can always weld a case back together.
Oh, you can't. No, you can't.
And you can fuck up cam towers. You can fuck up cylinder heads where that shit will never go back together again.
Now Porsche will sell you a brand new one.
That's true. It's not like you can walk out and get a cathedral port cylinder head.
Right.
You can go to the junkyard now. I can go now and get a new cylinder head.
Yeah.
Finding new cylinder heads that don't have the valves sunken in, that haven't been over machined, it's not easy. The part availability is not there, and the consequences, like I said, for failure are high. And all this shit has to be fucking perfect, or the motor won't turn over. It's so much different.
How much a brand new set of billet cylinder heads cost for a Porsche?
I have no idea.
Like ordering them from Porsche, you mean?
No. Porsche doesn't make billet cylinder heads.
Okay.
Potter makes them.
Oh, yes.
Extreme cylinder head makes them. But they're the ones. There's 2 companies.
Okay.
In America that make them that I know of. Off the top of my head. $10,000. Just for the fucking parts.
Yeah.
Then you got to buy valves. Then you got to buy seats. Then you got to buy springs. Then you got to do the job to put it all together and make it work. So how much do you have in your cylinder heads? And people say, well, that's really expensive. Go out and find a set of good 3.2 heads. Go out and find a good set of 3.6 heads. They don't fucking exist.
It's hard.
All the ceramics have fallen out of the ports and they're throwaway. They just don't exist.
I remember buying cylinder heads on eBay and stuff. When I first built my motor, it needed heads. And I would order them, and they would show up with the valves pushed through the seats. They were cracked. They were junk. I don't know what happened, or if people just quit caring at one point in time, so everything got thrown away, or what. But it's just Or it's the thermal properties of the way how hot these engines run, and they're expanding and contracting all the time. What it is, but
it's all of it.
Yeah, all of it.
All of it. You know, the newest air-cooled 911 is 1998.
Yeah,
it's getting.
I mean, that's what 30 years old at this point. You know.
Yeah.
My math isn't very good.
That's okay.
It's almost 30 is my point.
Yeah.
You know, like we're bumping up on 3 decades for the newest piece of shit to come out of Germany. You know, like, you know, and it's just getting harder to keep them running, and it's a very capitalist thing. It's just supply and demand. You know,
and we have this inertia right now too. The air-cooled inertia with the cars that are for sale. All of a sudden, because they're worth money, more people want to restore them. More people are go to the machine shop.
Well, I mean, in terms of like the machine, the market's cornered, you know, and I don't fault these guys for making a living. I don't fault them for charging what they charge. Hey, you want to be the boss, you got to pay the cost, right? That's how it works. So, you know, that's why. How much does it cost? That's how much it costs. I mean, the pistons and cylinders are $5,000.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't have to look to know that. It's just what they cost.
Me either. I've paid for them 3 times.
I know.
Now.
I have them still up in my browser at 2.5 that I want to
do. Yeah. And, you know, whose fault is that? Well, you know, materials costs have increased. Why can't we get certain parts? Because the metal doesn't exist. You know?
And I can tell you, I did those 3 episodes. We did those 3 episodes of all the cars that you could own instead of a 911. And I can tell you right now, and I knew this before I even left.
I'm not fucking leaving.
I ain't leaving. I'm staying. I'm not selling the car. There's nothing else. Like you said earlier, the reliability, the simplicity, and the performance together, you can make power in all kinds of other shit. If I wanted to do power and I cared about doing quarter mile run, there's a lot of better ways to do it. But in terms of the way how I drive, how much I drive, and where I drive, the simplicity and reliability coupled with the power and the unique driving experience, I don't think there's anything like it. And I think that people want to think maybe that they want to be that person that's going to drive a lot, even though they don't do it. Maybe that's why people are glomming onto it so much. I don't know. But the fact that it can do it is incredible. I think it's an incredible machine. I think the engineering of it is incredible. And, you know, it's for me. I'm married to it.
Yeah. I mean, I got a lot of stuff, and the last thing to go would be my 75. So, you know, it's they're special. I've driven across the country 4 times with them, you know, back and forth twice. And every time it was just an amazing adventure through all kinds of weather and places. And
hear that, Jake? You don't have to ship your 911 somewhere to go.
I did it. I went out to Utah and back in it and took a lot of the back roads.
And now that you've got the merit badge, you don't have to do it anymore. You just
Correct.
Ship it everywhere.
It's time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is time. Marco, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. You know, I've told people I'm like really excited to rip the chapters out of this book and forget that this part of it happened. But honestly, I can't say I'm glad it's happened, but I'm glad the way that it turned out. You know, it was an expensive thing, but I think the motor is incredible, and I'm happy that you were here to be part of that car story and my story.
Well, I've known you for a long time. I remember when you bought the car. I remember when it was around before you bought the car.
Yeah.
You know, I've known that car a long time. It's hard to believe, you know, at 42, I've known the car a decade almost, you know, like it's
more than that. I've owned it for a decade. I've owned that car for 10 years. I've known it longer than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's nice to be a part of the car's story, but at this point in it, I wouldn't want to have been a part of it any sooner, if you know what I mean. I think you needed to go through that before I could go through this.
That's what everyone says about my car, Marco.
Yeah, you never work on that dude's car.
It's come a long way.
It's got a long way to go. He's got angle iron welded to the floors underneath to keep the car straight.
It's a pinch weld. That's just the pinch weld, factory pinch weld.
It's going to be a fun journey. That one's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I hope that you get a lot of good use out of that car again, the way that you want it. Because, you told me you want to beat on it relentlessly. So I made it so that you could beat on it fucking relentlessly.
And I will.
It should look, you're a lot like me in that regard. I have some mechanical sympathy, but not a whole lot, because I know I can fix it, and so I use it. I use it all up as much as I can. It really provides a wonderful experience. And I think that, that car is great. I mean, it gets more ass at a public toilet seat on Instagram for sure. So,
all right, dude. Thanks for coming to hang out with me. I'll see you again when I come out and pick it up.
Right on, man.
You take care of yourself. Later. All right, dude. That's it. There you have it. You're the man himself.
Many thanks to Marco for coming on.
I like the perspective of a 2 driving different than a 2.2, than a 2.4, than a hot 2.4, and then
here's what I want to do.
This is what I talk about all the time: is the pursuit of more.
Yeah,
it is absolutely endless.
Oh,
you have to find the formula that works for what you do and what you're going to drive. Obviously, I kind of go, power isn't important. It's important.
Yes.
Right. It is.
It is for sure.
But only in the context of what you're trying to experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's most important. So what are you building?
Well, I don't know, because I want to know. Here's the thing I was going to ask her. Like, it's like, I want to drive each of those now. I want to drive a 2.2 stock, what mine is maybe supposed to be. And then I want to drive a 2.4. I want to drive a 2.5 long stroke, a 2.5 short stroke, and I want to drive a 2.7.
Right.
It's going to be somewhere between a 2.4 and a 2.7, I think.
I see.
Why? What I'm building.
Why is that?
Because the case I have is a 4.5R, which is going to be machined and webbed and everything else. And the size of the heads and
your heads are done?
I have heads? I have heads. They're 2.4 heads.
Do they need anything?
I need to have, yes, they're clean, they're complete, they're all there. I need to have the guides, the valve guide stems.
That's it.
Pushed in.
They don't need to be like the surfaces.
Surfaces look good. I am gonna send them out and be like, do the seats probably need to be done? The valve seats.
Yeah.
Regrind them.
Oversize the valves, a mil or two.
Yeah. Maybe.
Port the heads.
Yes, maybe some porting.
Yeah.
Itty bitty ports.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What I would love to do is what I want to do is a 2.5 short stroke. So like an ST motor, right? But instead of twin plug, it'd be single plug. But then I need a 2.2, a 66 mil counterweighted crankshaft, which I'm Googling right now.
I'm starting to do that glaze over thing I did yesterday.
Because you're right. If you're not in it, you don't know and you don't care.
You don't care.
But
I'm glad that you're building something. That's good.
I have parts in my basement. That's where I'm at.
Send stuff out for machining as soon as you can, because it takes.
I also have a 944 that I'm working on.
Yeah, well,
one thing
easy.
at a time.
That's easy. That's just a Volkswagen. Put it back together. There's no long-term machining for that situation. All right, guys, that is it. We're done. What do we got going on Friday? Kippenberger's coming on.
That's right. We have a very highly caffeinated episode.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We'll see you then.
Take care.